not, allowing, black kids. So, I mean, granted, we shouldn't take, $78,000, to figure it out. But the one thing we do know is that we can't count on them to, just be honest, because up until this point, they have, if that was the case, we wouldn't need an investigation or the lawsuit.
So let me ask a question, though. Let me ask this question. Does the consultant have free reign to go to teachers and get information without any repercussions and saying that, well, look, I went to TJ or I went to Joan or I went to Jamie or whoever, and they give me correct information and there are no consequences, that they can just go to the schools at will and go talk to people?
My understanding, Anselm, is that once the district entered into an agreement with the Office of Civil Rights, this was even before the investigation was complete, right? And so it was almost like, okay, we give, and they entered into this agreement. Marjorie and I were actually at a community meeting where Philip Stern, the board attorney, was there. This was shortly after the district entered into the agreement, and he, basically said, like, the district is at a point now where it has to, make these moves because of the investigation by the Office of Civil Rights, the ACLU lawsuit, and the fact that they signed, an agreement with the federal, Office of Civil Rights, and so subsequent to that, that's where all of these requirements came down with dates, attached to them, and the monitor, the consultant, the monitor. And so, while, again, I've been here, for 14 years, as a teacher, and in those 14 years, I don't think I've ever, the district hasn't, proactively, taken, steps along these lines. And so now, having entered into this agreement, I think there's more of a chance that their feet can be held to the fire because, again, to not do it now, you talk about federal funding.
But TJ, you're getting ready to wrap up. Let me ask you a question here. How does, you may not know this, but as a teacher of color at Columbia High School, how do you feel about the kids that are in the lower level and they are predominantly kids of color, as opposed to the kids who are in honors and AP classes are predominantly white? How do you feel about that? How do you feel about that?
Well, I've taught both. For the last 5 or 6 years. I've taught more on the upper end. I've taught more AP and honors classes. And to be honest with you, in my AP classes, I would say on average, if there are 25, 26 students, I may have had, 4, right, 3 or 4, students of color. And that's pretty consistent. And most of the time, those students of color are hardworking. The AP classes, the one thing I'll say is when we talk about opening up AP classes, across the board, my concern is that without the proper support, many kids, including our kids, meaning, African American kids or, students of color, will continue to suffer. And this is from a socioeconomic, perspective. A lot of the success that happens for students on an AP test happens outside of the classroom. And so we're talking about, private tutors, and again, that's a cost. And so if you have the wherewithal to provide that, now in addition to what they're getting in school, now your child has a much better chance. And so what I've always argued is that in addition to opening it up, there has to be the necessary support so that we're not just throwing, some kids to the wolves. And I say that because the AP curriculum is extensive, and unlike a lot of other classes, there's a set of material that kind of has to be covered. in a certain amount of time. And whereas other courses, in the regular history course, a teacher can, maybe choose to spend a little more time on one, subject, a little less time on another because, for any variety of reasons. In preparation for an AP test, there's a finite set of material that that teacher has to kind of get through if he or she is going to effectively prepare, the student, for the test. So I just argue that I think more students of color, black students, can have success in AP classes, but I do think there's a level of support that may be missing with some of them that would not change the achievement gap if that support isn't there. Like, it's not enough just to put the kids in the AP class. Like, they have to have the necessary support. In order to
like the white students have. Yeah. Because people, a lot of them in honors or in higher level classes, and I don't know what honors means in any specific district, but they have again, not only experiences, but their parents pay for their tutors. Their parents are sending them to Kumon or paying somebody to come and tell their teach algebra. So he might be teaching in his class, but then when they go home, or they go to the yeshiva or wherever it is that they go after school, or whoever's been hired to help them. See, so people do believe that all of the onus is totally on the teacher, but it's not just on the teacher. It's also the resources that parent provides for the student.
Now, we have, just listening to you, Marjorie, I think we have more than enough expertise among black folks in our two communities to where, why couldn't we have that type of program to where if kids are taking an AP class, but on the weekends, they can come to, someone who has the expertise to give them that extra support, like that level of organization. Because we talk about that type of thing in our community, but
let's be honest.
That's why.
Well, I mean, all of this goes back to, including the opting in and out and the support. It all goes back to the same thing, which is our goal, which is building community. And if people only knew all the resources that were available and could be made available.
But let's be honest.
We don't want to be honest.
TJ, you're an expert on language arts. And to be at Columbia for 14 years, you got to be doing something good. Marjorie, you're in political science. And to be in Staten Island for 25 years?
No, not in Staten Island for 25 years, but long enough. 13 years in that particular school. But
in that school for 13 years, and teaching AP classes, you got to know something.
And so your point is?
However, if you tell kids that you want to go to Marjorie as a tutor or TJ as a tutor,
ain't nobody having that.
They're gonna be like, you be like, Marjorie, TJ. But however, if you say John McDonald as a tutor, you say, oh yeah, he's very good. And TJ,
your point, you don't think that a black kid would go to another black person? Is that
no? I'm not saying he wouldn't go to a black person, but I'm saying there will be some hesitancy in order to do it, as opposed to going to a person who can identify with what it is, take you through it, and be a little more conscious.
It's a slave mentality.
Huh?
It's a slave mentality.
Hey, listen, man,
well, I mean, I don't,
it's
that
the
may
truth.
or may not be the case. As we talked about, hold up.
Marjorie,
we talked about a project we saw achieve at the Martin Luther King celebration, which the other one that you missed. And I saw the woman at Achieve grabbing, every brother walked past, can you come and help tutor kids for the Achieve project? Now, the Achieve program, does wonderful things in their district. However, and they do it's a diverse group of people. However, those of them who are donating the money and providing the resources, I don't know how diverse that is. And there are 100 nights of dinners. I don't know how many of those dinners are serving up soul food or, Caribbean food. But at any rate, they raise the money. So, and they do hire students to do tutoring, because they hired my son. My son tutored, but my son was tutoring white kids in math. So, it's all things are possible. So even if a black kid doesn't want somebody brown to tutor them, that brown kid could be tutoring someone white. So, I mean, how much do we trust one another, Anselm? That's another show.
Well, in closing, TJ, I mean, we really appreciate you coming here tonight. We definitely would like to have you back, and don't be a stranger. This was really fantastic. And
we learned a lot, TJ.
This is the Park/Common Core. And there's a saying that if you fought a core, you out the door. Marjorie, did you ever hear that one?
Please. And I'm out the door in about
You never heard that
minutes.
one, right? If you fought a core, you out the door. It's a real saying.
It's like he makes up stuff.
No, it's a real saying about the Common
yo.
Core. If you fought a Common Core, you out the door. Because they were going across the country for all these people who were back in the Common Core and said that, if you're running for the Board of Education and you fought a Common Core, you out the door. Okay. Anyway, so TJ, any closing remarks?
I just want to thank you guys for having me. I think this discussion is really important, and I think that hopefully parents and students check out the podcast over the next couple of weeks. I'm definitely going to point my students toward it and their parents in preparation for the meeting on the 23rd. So just thanks again for having me and having the discussion.
Yeah, and we got to see how we can rally parents to really make an effort, a conscious effort to pack that room and make it be some true diversity.
And what date is this now? The 21st?
The 23rd of February.
23rd.
And we're going to broadcast it live as well
and
again.
we're going to broadcast that, and hopefully we will do something for Black History Month and try to incorporate that before
Yeah.
that.
And we definitely got to do something for Black History Month, and we got to start that sooner rather than later.
Sooner than later, indeed.
Time check. The time is approximately 9:41 p.m.
Oh.
From where I sit, this is it. The clock on the wall said that's all. I like to stay, but I've got to go. Remember,
And you've got no quote.
Hard work beats talent.
A Black History
Month
quote.
You got to get.
Doesn't work hard.
You got to get.
And for every 20 seconds or 30 seconds of sorrow, I'm adding to my, making this quote as I go.
So we try to get Margie to say a quote of the day, but.
Oh, you want me to come up with
one?
No,
I got one. I have one. I always have a quote of the day. Today is the 3rd of January.
No.
And
it's February.
3rd of February, excuse me.
Please. Let's move forward. I want spring.
And here we are.
Yes.
Oh, my God.
The Somo quote of the day. Rather than focusing on the problems, winners focus on how to solve the problem.
That's right.
They don't let the past hang over them and work on solutions. Rather than focusing on the problems, winners focus on how to solve the problem. They don't let the past hang over them and work on solutions. Time check. The time is approximately 9:42 p.m. From where I sit, this is it. The clock on the wall said that's all. I like to stay, but I've got to go. Remember, hard work beats talent when talent does not work hard. For every 60 seconds of anger, you lose 1 minute of happiness. Closing words, Margie?
Good night, listeners. Thanks for
See you.
listening.
Same so more time, same so much.
Thanks,
And again, thanks, DJ, for coming in. Hope to see you again soon. Later. And we always give you this song before we go. See you.
Ooh yeah. So we're giving thanks to the Most High for all of His blessings, His guidance. Oh Lord, how great Thou art Thee. Thank You for blessing me. Transpose all my energy, yeah, and molded talents in me. Now those on my head, I appreciate Your gratitude, endurance and faith. They standing in line, want to intertwine, devour my body, soul and mind. But my will is strong, they can't show me down. With Your guidance I will carry on. Oh Lord, every day I'm going to sing this song. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Thank You, Lord, for what You've done for me. Yeah. Thank You, Lord, for every little thing. Yeah. Thank You, Lord, for what You've done for me. And I thank You for blessing me every day.